What's up guys, Block FPL here, welcome back. Today let's preview game week 9 and let's discuss, because I did play my wildcard last week, but I still have some issues and a lot of your teams probably have dealt with some injuries as well. So my transfer that I am 99% sure that I will be making is Watkins in and Wilson out. Now Wilson has done pretty well, but I feel like he's gotten a lot of lucky penalties, and he does play Chelsea this week, so not the greatest matchup. After that, they do play Crystal Palace. So if you have him, you could have bigger issues to deal with. But for me, I like the look of Watkins a lot, so I will be doing Watkins in as long as there's no crazy injuries or anything like that. Obviously, there have been a lot so far, but we'll get into that later. So Aston Villa are 6th right now in terms of most expected goals so far this season, and they've only played 7 games while most teams have played 8. So if you factor in that 8th game that they haven't played yet, as if they had, they would be above like Everton and Chelsea right now in terms of expected goals. So that's really huge, especially from an FPL perspective when we have Grealish at 7.5 and Watkins at 6.1. These are great options right now with this tremendous run of fixtures coming up where they've got this long stretch without really playing any top 3 teams or anything like that. Brighton at home this week looks great. Watkins on penalties is nice. He does have less expected goals so far this season than Wilson, and expected goals per 90 minutes. But again, I put a lot of that down to Newcastle, what I would consider penalties that can't really continue at this rate based on basically their lack of chance creating. They're in the bottom half in terms of expected goals this season, so I wouldn't expect them to consistently get penalties. But Wilson's not a terrible option. I just like Watkins too much, and I love the look of the double Aston Villa offense, and I also have Martinez as well, so hopefully they can continue to look pretty good. That will be nice. So Watkins in is pretty much going to happen. I would consider it done already, but again, I'm just waiting. And one of those reasons is because of injuries. So we're not too sure about the state of when will Salah be back, when will Chilwell be back. I assume Chilwell will be back this week. Salah, I hope he's back for next week. He's not going to play this week. I do not expect it. But I'm keeping him and basically just hoping he's back as soon as possible, because I'm not too confident in any of the alternatives I could bring in, including the Man City players. I'm just not too confident in them. So I love the look of Salah. I don't want to lose price on him. I'm sure his price will drop at least 0.1 in this time. But if he's back game week 10, I would feel dumb to get rid of him when I have somebody like Watkins that I can bring in. So I could see your situation if you do want to get rid of Salah. If you need enough players to play, maybe you want Bruno. If you're like, you know what, if I brought Bruno in, I would definitely captain him. Then maybe it's right for you to get rid of Salah. It's a little bit risky. I mean, we can't deny that. But again, let's wait and see even on this one. Let's wait till the last second, as long as you're not priced out of anything. Because then maybe we'll get some more news about the state of his injury or his illness more. So that's pretty important. Chilwell should be back. As far as I've heard, it's a back spasm. Now, of course, Chelsea have options. They can always play Alonso or Emerson. So who knows where that really goes. But again, I was just saying last video that he's such a great option that he's probably top 3 most essential if he stays healthy. So, and that goes for Salah as well. Salah and Chilwell, of the players that could get injured, those two, it really sucks because for FPL, they've just been so great so far. And of course, they're on good teams with pretty good fixtures coming up. So, yeah, I'm definitely keeping them if I can. Unless Salah's out for 3 games, then it becomes a tough one. Anything less than that, I would say it's probably a keep for me. I just wildcarded, so my team's set up to deal with it. So, worked out okay. So captaincy this week is kind of a big decision because there's no Salah, and whenever that's the case, it sort of makes things a little bit difficult. He didn't have the best matchup anyway, and I wasn't planning on captaining him. And another big thing is the players that a lot of people were captaining, the Spurs players, don't have a great matchup. They haven't looked great recently, so maybe people are even selling them and definitely not captaining them. For me, I'm keeping Harry Kane just because I think I have bigger issues to deal with. I'm not going to go out of my way to sell him. But after this week, I'm going to see how Tottenham do against their first real tough matchup. and then decide if I want to keep him. But the option is there to go to Vardy when their fixtures turn really good. Now, I think the Liverpool matchup this week could be good for Vardy, but again, Kane's look good. Tottenham as a whole haven't looked the best at creating chances in the last couple of games, but I think that with Kane on penalties, and even he got the one chance that they scored, I think Son didn't really look good at all. But Kane, it's just hard to sell him right now. He's been too good. Look at the points he scored in FPL. So I think I'm going to keep Kane, and then I'll just wait one more week to decide. If they look good against Man City, how could I really sell him? So for captaincy, I quite like the look of Bruno this week. Bruno is just such a high-quality player. I think he's the easy captain option here. With all these players out, Bruno is such a good option. West Brom have defended better. I will say that for sure, because they did have a couple bad weeks, but overall, like if you watch them against Tottenham, I guess we could make the argument that Tottenham simply can't create. But I like the look of Bruno in this game. I think if West Brom drop back, it gives Bruno some space to sort of do what he likes, and he's typically involved in a lot of the chances that are created, either on the end or, of course, the one being the passer, and he's on penalties. He's just a high-quality player, and if Man United can score a lot of goals, I think he'll be involved in that, and I think he's better than all the other options that are out there. So I'm captaining Bruno. There's really not else for me to say like that. I mean, if you look at my team, who else could I really captain? And the answer to that is Grealish and Calvert-Lewin. I think these are also great options because Grealish plays Brighton, and again, Brighton haven't looked good. So Grealish in this game could be a nice differential option. Most people will have him, but I'm not sure a lot of people will captain him because Aston Villa aren't getting that really respect in terms of like, oh, I'm going to captain an Aston Villa player, even though they have been performing at that level, at least from an attacking standpoint. So I also like to look at Grealish this week. He's not on penalties like Bruno, and you could make the argument that he's on a worse team, but I don't know who has the better fixture here. So I think Grealish is almost just as good as Bruno, but with the way Bruno's been finishing the ball lately in terms of just shooting, I'm going to go with Bruno on this one. So the other option is Calvert-Lewin. Again, this one's differential, but Calvert-Lewin's been great so far, and they play Fulham, who's terrible. So if you just look at it like that, this could be a brace for Calvert-Lewin easily. Who knows what happens with James if he finally has a good game again. But as I mentioned last video, in a game where Everton dominate, James should be able to take over. So I think these are the three best captaincy options from my team. And in general, I think the best two are Bruno and Grealish. I mean, I've got money in him as well. And Vardy, you could make the same argument about Callum Wilson that you do for Vardy about lucky penalties. So who knows how that continues there. But for me, I'm going to keep Kane, and I'm going to play him with this Salah injury. It fits well, as you can see on my team. I've currently got Wilson on the bench, but that will be Watkins, and he will end up playing over Salah. So with all that said, let's take a look at the Game Week 9 fixtures. I'll sort of give my thoughts about some of the players that I haven't mentioned yet, and I guess I can try to predict what I expect to happen in these games, but that's kind of tough to do, especially after an international break and with injuries and stuff, but I'll give it a go. So Newcastle and Chelsea, I've already talked about Callum Wilson. I think Newcastle scores 0 or 1 goals here. I'd say it's like 50-50 each chance, unless Chelsea have a complete breakdown. But after the first 5 minutes of the Sheffield game, Chelsea looked to defend pretty well. So I quite like to look at Chelsea in this game, which should be obvious. I think Chelsea could easily score 2 or 3. It's hard to predict who gets the returns from Chelsea, really. Who knows? One thing I will note about some players is, Ziyech. He's a good player, don't get me wrong. I said that before the season started, that I personally think he's probably a better player than Werner. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but Ziyech does lack goal threat. I think Chilwell has more goal threat than him when he plays. So I'm waiting to see some real, Ziyech getting shots inside the box, maybe getting on the end of crosses. I don't really expect it that much, and that's why I'm not too high on him as an option. Maybe if I was wildcarding now, I would find a way to fit him in, but it's not the kind of player I'm going to use a transfer on at the moment because of the lack of goal threat, even though he does have a lot of assist threat. I guess for me, it's still a wait and see on Ziyech. But if you have him, then good for you. That's actually a pretty good pick. So congratulations for basically getting that pick right. Aston Villa and Brighton. Brighton, pretty disappointing, really. I thought I saw some things early on in the season that would sort of indicate that they were going to be playing well, but they've just looked bad recently. Maupay's not looked good. Trossard was not in the squad last game. I'm glad I wildcarded for that reason. I think if you have Brighton players like Maupay and Trossard, Lamptey could be a decent option, but an attacker, if you have the money to go to a Watkins or a Grealish, one of the Aston Villa guys, that's probably a very obvious move. I know it may not be the worst fixture for Brighton, but I just don't see how you don't get rid of them at this point. But that's just my opinion. And Aston Villa, I've already talked about them. I quite like their options, especially attacking wise, just because there are some like defensive alternatives that you could get. I guess the same can be said for attacking, but at the same time, there's no really replacing the value of at least Grealish right now at that price point. So yeah, Aston Villa great, Brighton the opposite really in terms of FPL. Lamptey is the only viable option, I would say, and who knows how many clean sheets they keep. So Spurs versus Man City. I like the look of Kane. We'll see if Son can counterattack against the big teams in this game. If there's any team you could counterattack against right now, I would assume Man City would be up there. I mean, Liverpool, obviously, with their injuries. But Son, it could theoretically be a good matchup for him, even though he hasn't looked good. Man City. So I have taken the complete route of I'm going to wait for them to impress me to bring them in. I'm not going to bring one of them in early unless, who knows what happens with the Salah situation. But I'm not planning on bringing them in simply because they haven't impressed me. So I don't want to be somebody that has a Man City player in and it's like, okay, they'll do good now. Okay, I'm sure they'll do good now. Like, I don't want to fall into that. I've just decided based on how they looked, and you're still dealing with rotation there, like, in order to get over that downside rotation, with players like, whoever knows, Mahrez, if you're going for a cheaper option especially. Sterling and De Bruyne, I guess they won't be rotated, but the point is that they can be subbed, and we don't know if De Bruyne is on penalties. I assume he still is. But the point is that I've just simply decided that once they start to look good, then I'll get them in. Sort of like I would treat any other team, but I'm not going to go with a last season view of, I know they can do well. Because I'm especially not sold on Sterling, and we've seen some games where De Bruyne plays too deep for my liking. So Manchester United versus West Brom. I'm captaining Bruno this game week. I hope West Brom look terrible defensively. I don't really know how they'll look. I will say that Spurs didn't look very creative against teams before they played West Brom as well. So maybe last game is more of a sign of that rather than West Brom being able to defend very well. Hopefully they just defend decently. But I think Bruno can be involved in the goal if Manchester United do score. I'm not too interested in Rashford yet, simply because Rashford, I've always thought that he was going to be able to sort of get better at finishing, but he hasn't. And he still misses a lot of chances. If you watched last game, he had the 1v1 that he missed, and there was another one that I was like, he should have scored that, really. And I feel like he'll have that in this game as well, where even if he gets the chances, you don't know if he's going to score them, and I don't feel the same way with Bruno. I think he's going to take the chances when he gets them, as well as create more chances. So Bruno's the way to go for me. He's worth the extra $1 million over Rashford. On an unrelated note, West Brom, of course, they have no FPL options that I'm interested in. So Fulham, Everton, differential captain options, I guess. Fulham have just been very bad, as we saw last game. They did give West Ham some trouble, but you can't really see Fulham and be like, they're going to cause us trouble with a team like Everton. So I think Everton, if you have James or Calvert-Lewin, this is the game you've been waiting for, really, after this. I'm not sure it looks too positive for them, but they're both good matchups or good options for this matchup. Fulham, not interested in any of their players, especially after Mitrovic did not take that penalty. West Ham, this is probably, I have two of their defenders. This is probably their last chance that I really think, they have a really good chance of keeping a clean sheet here. I know it's on the road, but Sheffield United aren't the most creative team, and they're also a team that Brewster is really the only legitimate Sheffield United option for me at the moment, and he would just be a bench player. I wouldn't play a Sheffield United forward. What do I look like? West Ham do have some FPL options. If Antonio's ever back, he will be a solid option. Fornals, I'm glad I didn't go with him. I don't think he's really that viable because of the million more price range. I know it's just a million, but if you get a million more, you can go with Grealish or Zaha, which is so much better than somebody like Fornals. But West Ham's defense at 4.5, Masuaku and Sufal, they actually have some attacking threats, so it's worth keeping in mind. Besides just looking at West Ham's fixtures and being like, after this, it's okay, but it's not great. Leeds and Arsenal. Arsenal just been disappointing in general. Leeds could easily win this game. Bamford is still a player that has been hurting me because I don't have him. And I think he's going to get some more chances here to get some goals. Arsenal, I'm not impressed by any of them in terms of FPL assets. Besides the defenders, you could go with somebody like Bellerin, but I think they're going to change to a 4-2-3-1 pretty soon, and that transition period, changing formations and changing tactics, could be tough for them, but attacking-wise, there's no reason to go for any Arsenal players here. And Leeds defenders, I'm not too sold on them either. I know a lot of people like them, their attacking threat. I think they've been a little bit hyped up by the FPL community because of the other options that are out there, sort of such as West Ham. But again, they're not bad. They're solid, but I just feel like they're probably a little overhyped. And part of that is probably because they have like a large fan base and all that and their history in the Premier League. So Liverpool versus Leicester. Leicester could easily win this game. I mean, theoretically, this fits into Leicester's playing style with Jamie Vardy on the counter, and they've been getting lucky penalties. So who knows if that happens in this game as well with some defense that Liverpool will try to put together. I think Vardy has a good chance of scoring in this game. It fits him well. I'm not so sure about the players like Harvey Barnes. After this matchup, I like the look of the Leicester defense, which is why I got in Justin on wildcard. He may come off my bench for this game if enough people don't play, and I'm not so sure that they can keep a clean sheet. But without Salah, Leicester have a chance, so I will put him on my bench ahead of Riyad Wall, just for that reason. And you could probably say that Justin has more attacking threat than Riyad Wall does anyway. So that's why he is second sub and not third sub. Liverpool, I mean, if you have Mane, you still play him, but I don't really see any captain options in this game at all. Just because you could see either team winning, and if Liverpool went out and win 2-1, it would be a good performance, but would it really be that shocking? I don't really think so. So Burnley, Crystal Palace. Burnley, you could go with a Burnley defender here. I like Burnley's defense in general. They minimize big chances. Crystal Palace, obviously Zaha and Van Aanholt, I think are great options. I quite like them until their fixtures get bad, which they will eventually. But hopefully Zaha will get another penalty. Other than that, he sort of lacks getting off an unblocked shot sometimes, I feel like. But that's sort of just the way that Crystal Palace work. He doesn't really get created tap-ins all the time. He's sort of creating for himself and trying to get past one or two defenders. So it's tough for him a lot of times, but he's a great player, so he's able to do it. He'll probably get chances to dribble at people like Charlie Taylor or what's his name, Bardsley. So it'll be an interesting game to watch, I think, just from how does Zaha handle playing the big boys of Burnley. Wolves and Southampton. Wolves have been terrible. There's no way around that. I went with none of them on wildcard, and I think that's the way to go. Besides Kilman, you could make the argument for him, but with the fixtures they have, they're bad. Are you ever really going to play him in the next, 5 game weeks? Probably not. This is probably one of the best fixtures they had. I haven't even looked at them. I'm just not interested in them. I'm going to say if you're wildcarding, I don't see any point of getting a Wolves player. There's better alternatives out there. No creativity going forward. Jimenez gets like maybe 1 or 2 chances. Again, maybe they turn this around. They have the players to turn this around. But I just really don't see a reason of getting their players right now because of the teams like Aston Villa that provide good value. If you don't have 3 Aston Villa players, you can get rid of a Wolves player and get one of them. Like there's other teams that you can get over Wolves right now that are just so much better, including Southampton, really. Players like Armstrong, maybe. Maybe not. If Ings is ever back, that would be great for this game. But Che Adams, what a great value option he's been. I mean, I got rid of him, and I definitely should not have done that. He's been so good. Southampton defenders, you could even take a punt on them. They're pretty cheap. They have a bunch of solid FPL options, but I don't have any just because none of them are quite like the next level up for me. but I think that Southampton will probably win this game if they continue playing how they've been playing, and I think that Crystal Palace will probably score some goals on Burnley, but that'll be a very close game because Burnley are at home, and I do trust them more at home. So that's sort of my overview of these fixtures. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you watched the whole thing and you enjoyed it, please feel free to like and subscribe. Anyway, hopefully you have a good game week 9, just not as good as mine, and I will see you next time.